All right. And thank you, good people, for hanging on to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast with Ken LaRoe. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We want to see some questions here today, folks. So if you're listening to this, you're one of 25 people on this show. Thanks for being here, one. And two, ask Ken your questions on the show. And now, Ken, while we're waiting for a few questions to fly in, that is something that's been very interesting to me in terms of how people are struggling to identify their values. Because sometimes when we hear what people like thoughts that pop into your head, right? Things on the media that you see that attract you, that appeal to you. I have to have this sign outside my house because I align with this organization. Unfortunately, people aren't able to get past that surface level of that human being and really understand who their values are, right? Your thoughts aren't who your values are, right? We are all inherently, I think, good people that are trying to do the right thing, but may not just know how. You think it's like social media, pressure, TV, media, anything that's out there right now, do you think that's had a major influence on people making, let's say, decisions that don't align with their moral compass?
Absolutely. And then we've got the really huge problem of these people with a gazillion IQ that are sitting around all day writing code that actually manipulates the human brain at a very deep, almost lizard brain level. It's like the whole thing with QAnon, with the whole program was written with the under gaming theory concepts of you get in there, you're presented with a riddle or a challenge, and you got to solve the riddle or challenge, and you feel like a winner if you do, even though it's as far-fetched and ridiculous as cannibalistic, cabal of cannibalistic pedophiles in the basement of a pizza shop. You sit back and you go, how could anybody believe that? And we're all being manipulated at a very primal level.
Right, we are, and it's the age of information wars. What algorithms can I use to control the mass population? How do you feel with that, with kind of the vaccine rollout? Obviously, I think it's a good thing. I'm getting vaccinated, but what if this was something else, right? What if I had this whole, society telling me that I have to put something into my body that really wasn't that good for me? Do you think that's something that you could live with?
Well, I mean, don't we as a society have some responsibility to the community as a whole? It goes back to private property rights, and one of the foundational elements of our democracy. And we all have heard from somebody, well, it's my property, I can do what I want. Well, no, you can't do what you want if it's going to affect everybody else, even if it's your property. So I think there's got to be a point. I mean, contact tracing might be the perfect riff off of what you said. So you've got this pandemic, you've got a vaccine. Should we allow contact tracing in the American democracy? Is that a infringement on our rights? I don't know.
All we can say is it's interesting times right now. It's something that it's just kind of exciting to see unfold. All right, we've got a question coming in here from Andrew Ken. And Andrew says, first and foremost, love what you're doing, Ken. I'll definitely be making a shout out on Twitter. Okay, now, but regarding your fiduciary duty to your customers, how does Climate First Bank keep people accountable if they don't uphold their end of the bargain to be climate first? Well, I apologize if I missed this during the conversation. I'll probably have to re-listen.
No, you didn't miss it, Andrew. It's part of that whole thing of we'll bank the guy down the road that might happen to be a Trumper, and he's going to love us because we're a responsive, great community bank with great customer service. But then the question comes out, did we know he was a trumper? He or she was a trumper? And if we did, would we bank them? Then it goes full circle to bank them with what product? Bank them with a deposit or bank them with a loan? And with a deposit, you can close out a customer account, say, I don't want your account anymore. You don't even have to give a reason. But a loan, you've got a contractual obligation to the borrower unless they violate the loan covenants. You can't close it out. So, there's definitely going to be cases where somebody's doing something anathema to our values proposition, and they're already a customer, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. In the case of us maybe requiring a LEED certification on a building to approve the loan, what we'll do is we'll build a loan covenant in there that if they don't do it, their rate goes way up. And we would make it punitive. We would make it to where it would be uncomfortable for them, A, to not do the LEED certification like we required, or B, they move the loan because they can get a better, lower rate somewhere else after the rate increase. So the answer is not I don't have a yes or no answer. I don't have a black and white answer, but it's definitely an evolving answer.
And so just to clarify, you're not turning down people because they may have, let's say, different ethics or a different philosophy on how business should be run. But what you're doing is you're incentivizing them to implement changes within their organization. Did I get that right?
Well, I mean, there will be cases where I'm sure we'll turn people away because philosophically we don't agree with them. I mean, if we knew for a fact that there was a farmer that was hiring undocumented workers and paying them below living wage, we would not do business with them. There was a deal came before us at First Green that was a guy, I won't even say what business he's in because somebody might be able to figure it out, but has a business on the side of I-75, and I drive by it every time I go up to see my grandkids, and had the gigantic Trump flags and signs all over it. That business guy was before our loan committee, and I said, we're not doing it. We're not going to do the deal. It's just we're not doing it because it becomes an underwriting risk. Is the judgment so flawed of that business person that it's an underwriting risk? So I mean, there is slippery slopes. There is stuff that happens.
Interesting. And I think I've heard this before, that ESG from an investor's perspective is almost like a risk lens. It's very much kind of what you had just said. If they're not kind of adhering to these policies, it's just at its simplest point, a risk lens for our investments that we're making. And I found that kind of very interesting. Do you see any downsides to that? For instance, if you want to actually have the change you want to make, is there any way to influence people who aren't, adhering to these standards?
Well, I mean, there's ways to influence people that may never believe, never buy in, but you can influence them with their pocketbook. I mean, if somebody is going to save money because they covered the roof with solar, and that's the only reason they want to do it is because they save money, you and I are okay with that because we're still drawing down atmospheric CO2, or at least not, contributing to it. And I've had that happen. I had a guy that had a bowling alley and covered the roof with solar because it was going to save a couple $1,000s a month in electricity, and it more than paid for the cost of solar. But he didn't care. He doesn't believe in anthropogenic climate change. But we were like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll still do the 100% financing on the solar array.
Saves money.
So I think you can definitely influence people, if nothing else, through their pocketbook.
Ken, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Any last words for our audience out there listening to this?
Just never give up.
Never give up, folks. And folks, if you want to hear this episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it will be edited and produced and released tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific. So if you want to leave us a review, if you enjoyed this episode today, please let us know what you thought. There's a little nice shiny green button there. Don't avoid it. Click that button. Let us know what you think and help this show continue its good work and get on more cool guests like Ken LaRoe. Ken, appreciate your time here on the Real Leaders Podcast, and thanks for keeping it real.
Thank you.